Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be one of those guys sharing a cheating story, but here we are. You guys always have some sound advice, so I'm throwing my own mess into the ring. This is how I caught my wife Sarah with a secret life I knew nothing about, and how it turned my world upside down. First off, we've been married for 7 years, and we have a son, Ethan, who's the light of my life. I'm that guy, David, a software developer, which, I guess, played into all this discovery drama. It all started innocently enough. I was scrolling through my social media when I saw a suggested friend pop up, someone who looked eerily like Sarah in a profile picture, but the name was off. It was one of those moments where you squint at the screen and your brain just refuses to make sense of it. Curiosity got the best of me, and I clicked on the profile. There was Sarah, or rather, Sierra, as her profile said, hugged up with some dude I'd never seen before. Stomach dropped, heart stopped. You know the drill. The photo was tagged by a friend of the guy, and due to some privacy settings oversight, it showed up on my feed. The pictures and posts dated back months. Sierra looked happy, carefree, and completely at ease in the arms of another man. Posts about their dates, their little inside jokes, comments from friends I'd never met, all there for anyone to see if they stumbled across it like I had. I remember that night clearly. Ethan was already in bed, and Sarah was out for her usual Thursday girls' night. Feeling like an idiot, I sat there scrolling through this alternate reality where my wife wasn't my wife at all. Did confrontation flare up? Of course, it did, but I hesitated. Ethan was my primary concern. I wanted to shield him from whatever was coming, so I did what I knew best. I began gathering evidence silently, like a ninja in the digital shadows. That's the first part of my saga, straight out of a soap opera, right? I still cringe at how blind I was. Anyway, stick around. I'll tell you how this all spiraled into the most intense and strategic chess game of my life, the divorce and custody battle. Got thoughts or advice? Hit me up in the comments. I'll lay out more details in the next update, but know this, the rabbit hole went deeper than I ever imagined. Hey again, Reddit, David here, continuing the tale of my crumbling marriage and my dive into stealth mode. Much appreciated to those who reached out with support and advice after my last post. Now, buckle up for the next part, where I get my act together, well, somewhat. So after the initial shock of finding Sierra's world, aka Sarah, I spent some nights staring at the ceiling, mind racing with each click of the clock. Angry? Hell yeah, confused, beyond measure. But if there's one thing my old man taught me, it's to keep your head cool when the heat's on. The next few days, I went full Jason Bourne, minus the car chases and fistfights. I saved screenshots, logged timestamps, you name it. But there was one problem. The evidence was all digital. Sarah's clever. She'd wiped the traces clean before you could say divorce papers. I needed something concrete, proof that wouldn't disappear with a click. That's when I got a voice-activated recorder. Before you jump on me about consent laws and invasion of privacy, I checked. In my state, it's legal to record conversations you're a part of. I didn't plan to use it in court. This was for my peace of mind, to know I wasn't insane. I plugged the recorder under the couch, hit record, and waited. Sarah was still maintaining her normal routine at home, unsuspecting. It didn't take long for her to slip. Phone calls while I was at the gym. I was actually in the car down the street. Her giggling like a schoolgirl on the phone with Mr. Mystery. And yet, I didn't confront her. Why? Because of Ethan. I wanted to keep things stable for him until I had an exit strategy. I met with a lawyer, an old college buddy, who gave me the rundown on divorce and custody. That's when I learned about the concept of at-home separation. Basically, you act divorced while still living together for the kids' sake. This was my new reality. I was sharing a home with a stranger, sharing meals, sharing a bed, all while knowing that my wife's thoughts were with another man. The stress was gnawing at me. I'd drop Ethan off at school, pretend to head to work, then circle back to grab the recorder and listen to what was going on in my own house while I was gone. I also made sure to spend more quality time with Ethan. Movie nights, trips to the park, teaching him to ride his bike, all the normal dad stuff but cranked to 11. I had to make up for the warmth that had vanished from our home. In parallel, I started documenting Sarah's shortcomings as a parent. She was often late to pick Ethan up from school, forgot his lunch a couple of times, and was always too busy to help with homework. On the weekends, when she said she was taking him to the movies or the museum, they'd often go to her sister's instead while she ran errands. I knew what those errands likely were. The worst part was keeping this facade, acting like the loving husband while Sarah played pretend too. All my actions were calculated now, anticipating the inevitable legal battle. I put on my best poker face with each fake "I love you" she tossed my way. During all of this, there were moments when I desperately wanted the old Sarah back, the one who would laugh at my dumb jokes and snuggle up on the couch during a thunderstorm. But Sierra had taken her place, and every whisper into that damn phone was like a knife twisting in the gut. Here's where I'll leave off for now. The evidence was piling, and the tension at home was thick enough to cut with a knife. In the next part, I'll tell you about the breaking point, when I finally decided to pull the trigger on the life we had built together. Back at it, Reddit. Some of you asked why I didn't just throw in the towel when I first found out about Sarah's double life. Truth is, I needed to be smart about it for Ethan's sake. He's my North Star through this mess. All right, let's dive into when things really hit the fan. Sarah's birthday was coming up. Despite everything, I decided to keep up appearances. I planned a small family dinner, something intimate, to show Ethan everything was normal. I ordered Sarah's favorite cake, made reservations at her favorite restaurant, the whole 9 yards. On the day, while I'm putting up decorations after Sarah leaves for work, my phone buzzes. It's a reminder for Ethan's soccer practice, something Sarah was supposed to handle while I did the birthday setup. Guess who forgot? The mom of the year. I frantically called around, got Ethan to practice, and smoothed things over with his coach. Meanwhile, Sarah's totally AWOL, not answering her texts or calls. Ethan's disappointment was palpable, and I assured him we'd talk to Mum about it. We get back from practice, and I finish setting up just in time for Sarah to waltz in, an hour late, reeking of expensive cologne that I sure as hell never wear. She's all smiles, until she sees the decorations and realizes she screwed up. Her excuse? She got caught up in a surprise marketing meeting. Yeah, right. This was my moment, not for a Hollywood showdown, but to play it cool and smarter. I went along with her story, clenched jaw hidden behind a grin. Needless to say, dinner was tense, with Sarah overcompensating and Ethan stealing glances at both of us, sensing the shift in gravity between his parents. That night, after everyone had celebrated, I put Ethan to bed, read him an extra story, and went to check the recorder. The minute I turned it on, my heart plummeted. Clear as day, I heard Sarah's voice, cooing about how she'd managed to dodge her boring family stuff and spent the afternoon at a hotel with Mr. Mystery. She wasn't just cheating, she was throwing her own family under the bus to do it. The next morning, I had a long talk with my lawyer. I was done collecting evidence. I had enough. We started drafting the divorce papers, but more importantly, we began building the case for my full custody of Ethan. I couldn't let his childhood be marred by Sarah's negligence and lies. We navigated cautiously, considering every step. It would take time, but it needed to be flawless for Ethan's sake. The storm was approaching, and I was ready to weather it for my son. Hey there, Reddit family. David here, navigating through the murky waters of marital betrayal and legal intricacies. Your comments and DMs have been a lifeline. Thank you sincerely. Now let's get into the sharp turns of this treacherous road. After the birthday fiasco, I buckled down on the legal front. My lawyer, who's been a godsend, suggested that timing and strategy were crucial. During this time, I held a facade of normalcy at home, being the attentive husband, all while orchestrating my exit strategy. My lawyer, Ben, laid it out for me. We're playing three-dimensional chess here, David. We've got to think several moves ahead. We planned every detail, from how to serve the papers to tackle the inevitable custody dispute. For the latter, we went through the records of Sarah's recent parenting lapses. It was heartbreaking but necessary. Amidst this, Ethan's 6th birthday was looming. I focused on making it spectacular, a superhero-themed party with all his friends from school. I needed him to have this pocket of joy amidst the growing Cold War at home. The party went off without a hitch, and Ethan was on cloud 9. That smile of his was the light in all this darkness. Sarah, surprisingly, was present the whole time, playing the doting mother, entirely unaware of her impending reality check. The truth is, creating these happy memories for Ethan was doubly significant. I wanted him to have a sense of normalcy before everything changed, but I also wanted to demonstrate my full involvement in his life. These moments were documented, both in photos and in my mental record, for when we'd need to prove my commitment as a father in court. After the party, the legal maneuvers began. Ben had everything drawn up. The papers outlined not just the dissolution of marriage, but also a comprehensive outline for shared custody. Though my ultimate goal was full custody, reality insisted we start with a shared proposal. However, before we could serve the papers, life threw a curveball. Sarah's mysterious lover, that shadow in the background of her secret life, suddenly passed away. An accident, no foul play, just a tragic random event. This changed everything. Sarah was a wreck. Her world shattered in a way I couldn't have predicted, and there I was, holding an envelope that was essentially a time bomb, fighting against every instinct to comfort her. But pity couldn't sway the plans. I had to keep the well-being of Ethan first and foremost. After consulting with Ben, we decided to delay serving the papers. Not out of mercy, but strategy. I couldn't risk seeming opportunistic in the eyes of the court, especially with something as sensitive as custody involved. So, I supported Sarah through her grief from a distance, while solidifying my bond with Ethan. It was about balance, being there as a father, and waiting for the right moment to advance my cause, a delicate game of patience and will. What's up, Reddit? It's David with the next installment of my story that should probably be a season arc on a daytime drama by now. You've all been a rock for me, and the PMs have offered incredible support and advice. Thanks for sticking with me through this. Now for the roller coaster that came next. In the wake of her lover's death, Sarah was devastated. I saw a side of her grief I hadn't prepared for, raw, unfiltered, and full of regret. It was a stark reminder that she too was human, flawed, and capable of feeling pain. Don't get me wrong. My resolve didn't waver, but it certainly added a weight to my chest that I couldn't shrug off. During this period, I doubled down on my role as Ethan's rock. I was dad, friend, confidant, and the source of stability as his mother navigated her own private storm. Those days were a blur of school runs, bedtime stories, and lots of questions about why Mummy was so sad. With Ben's counsel, I kept the divorce papers tucked away, biding my time. It turned out to be a wise choice. In her grief, Sarah began slipping up even more as a parent. Late pickups became no-shows, and her involvement in Ethan's daily life diminished. It pained me to see Ethan confused and hurt by her distance, but it also fortified my case for custody. Eventually, reality began to settle back in. Sarah started to emerge from her mourning, getting back into her work routine, trying to patch a semblance of normalcy for Ethan's sake. Meanwhile, I maintained the everyday rhythm for my son, so he always felt secure and loved, no matter what. Then, after a month-long waiting game, Ben and I decided it was time. We served the papers on an unsuspecting Sarah. To say she was blindsided would be an understatement, but it had to happen. The elephant in the room had grown too big to ignore, and my primary concern was still Ethan's future and well-being. The moment she read through the documents, Sarah's facade fell. All the pent-up emotions, betrayal and guilt came pouring out. She oscillated between anger and pleading, asking me to reconsider. I wish I could say it didn't affect me, but it did. Our history, the love we once shared, it all came rushing back. But then I'd glance at Ethan's picture on the mantel, and my decision was clear. I wouldn't back down. My role as his father, protector, and guide was non-negotiable. As predicted, Sarah contested the custody arrangements. What followed were a series of intense legal exchanges. Evidence I had painstakingly collected was finally brought to light. The voice recordings, the negligence, everything laid bare for the court's scrutiny. I can't lie, it was a brutal process. Every meeting with lawyers felt like another round in an endless boxing match. But through it all, Ben was a powerhouse, meticulously challenging Sarah's claims and reinforcing my position as the more responsible parent. Hello again, Redditors, David here, chronicling what I've begun to call the great marital meltdown of 2023. Your words have been a mix of comfort and wisdom, so thank you. Pull up a chair, because the courtroom saga begins here. The custody battle had kicked off with intensity. There's something surreal about sitting in a sterile courtroom, discussing your family's future as if it were a business transaction. The legalese, the formalities, it all felt like we were discussing someone else's life, not mine, not Ethan's. Ben, true to form, was eloquent and incisive. We presented our case, framing my active role in Ethan's life versus Sarah's recent negligence, compounded by her affair's psychological impact. I won't lie, there were times I felt like the villain, airing our dirty laundry, exposing the mother of my child. But Ethan's best interest was the lens through which I viewed every decision. Sarah's lawyer was good, spinning a narrative of a woman lost in the throes of an emotional crisis, deserving of sympathy and a second chance. But the sympathy card buckled under the weight of tangible evidence. But let's talk about the day the court delivered its verdict, because that's a day etched into my memory with stark clarity. I remember looking over at Sarah. For a brief moment our eyes locked, and there was this flicker of recognition, a silent acknowledgement of all that had led us to this point. Yet the walls we'd built between us were too high, too sturdy, to let any true understanding pass through. The judge cleared his throat, a harbinger of the decision to come. He spoke of the importance of a child's stability, the necessity of responsible parenting, and then those words, "primary custody awarded to David." It felt like the room's air vanished. I had won. Ethan was going to be with me. Relief flooded in, but so did an overwhelming sense of grief for what was lost, for Sarah, for Ethan having to go through this fracture in his family. There was no fist-pumping, no celebratory outburst. This wasn't a game. It was the bittersweet realization that Ethan's life would be markedly different from what I'd dreamed for him. Sarah was distraught. She broke down, a mix of anger and anguish pouring out. Her eyes met mine again, but this time they were wells of pain. I couldn't console her. That bridge had been burnt. Yet it was impossible not to feel for the person who had once been my partner, my confidant. The aftermath of the court's verdict rippled through our lives. Adjustments had to be made. Ethan, though young, sensed the gravity of the change. His confusion was heart-wrenching, but I vowed to guide him through it with all the love and support I could muster. We began a new routine, a new sense of normal. Ethan adapted with the resilience that only children seem to possess. He asked questions, of course, innocent probes that pierced like arrows. Why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore? Guiding him through this was my next challenge. Hey friends, David here again. From subreddit to soapbox, I've laid it all out here, and your support has been immeasurable. Single fatherhood is my new headline, and it comes with its unique set of challenges. Let's get into the complexities of this new chapter. Life post-custody decision was like rebooting into safe mode. Necessary, but nothing feels quite right. Ethan and I embarked on a journey of adjustments while navigating the logistics of visitation schedules and co-parenting dynamics. Sarah and I began the tentative dance of passing Ethan between us with all the awkward grace of newbies at a salsa class. I can't sugarcoat it. It was rough. Handoffs charged with unsaid things, hard glances, and sometimes tears from Sarah. For Ethan, I maintained a fortress of positivity about time with his mum. However, her time with Ethan was initially sporadic, almost reluctant. On days she was due to pick him up, I'd see that spark of hope light up in Ethan's eyes. Sometimes it paid off. Other times that spark would sputter and die when she called to cancel. It was on those days that the full weight of single fatherhood really sank its teeth into me. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that his mum isn't coming, again, without his world turning darker? So, I became a pro at quick pivots. Mum's busy, but hey, let's go get some ice cream and hit the park. Work-life balance took on a whole new meaning. My job was understanding, but the reality was a juggling act of meetings and school runs, conference calls while marinating chicken, reports written against the backdrop of bedtime stories. I was in constant motion, but Ethan was thriving, and that fueled me. I also can't skate over the loneliness that crept in after Ethan's bedtime. The silence of the house was deafening. I'd sit on the couch, shadows playing across the room, hounded by the what-ifs and the if-onlys. Social media didn't help. Reminders of the past, pictures of Sarah looking happier without the weight of us on her. But I couldn't fall down that rabbit hole. I had to be there for Ethan, be a pillar when everything else seemed to crumble. There was light, though. Seeing Ethan adapt with resilience was nothing short of awe-inspiring. We developed new routines, new traditions, just the two of us. We became a team, making our pasta on Tuesdays and having movie marathons on Fridays. Slowly, Sarah started to find her footing again, becoming more consistent with her visits. Ethan deserved his mom in his life, and I wasn't going to be the one to deny him that bond, regardless of our fractured past. Hey Reddit compatriots, David here on the Single Dad Voyage. We've tackled stormy seas, and now we're navigating through the calmer yet unpredictable waters of establishing a new norm. Here's the latest on finding equilibrium and dealing with what it tosses our way. As the months rolled by, Sarah started to solidify her presence in Ethan's life. I have to give credit where it's due. She became more reliable. Maybe the finality of the court's decision was the jolt she needed. Whatever it was, Ethan started benefiting from having his mum show up both physically and emotionally. Our own communication improved too. Less frosty silences, more pragmatic discussions about Ethan's needs. We even managed to pull off a couple of joint parent-teacher meetings without any underlying tension surfacing. Progress, huh? In the midst of this, I encountered an unexpected hurdle: dating as a single dad. It's not something I jumped into. A colleague I'd known for years, Ava, gradually became more than a friend. She had been quietly supportive throughout my ordeal, listening without judgment, offering the occasional lasagna drop-off when the world felt particularly upside down. It started with coffee, then dinners, and before I knew it, I was facing the logistics of introducing Ethan to someone who could potentially be a significant presence in our lives. It wasn't something I took lightly. Ethan had been through enough upheaval. The introduction was gradual. Ava slipped into our weekends subtly, joining us at the park, showing up with extra tickets to a game. Ethan warmed up to her, bonding over a shared adoration of superheroes and pepperoni pizza. But then the complexities of blended dynamics reared their heads. Ethan asked questions, a lot of them. Is Ava our family now? Does Mommy know? Explaining to Ethan the nuances of adult relationships felt like deciphering hieroglyphs without the Rosetta Stone, but we muddled through. Sarah, for her part, was initially taken aback. There was an air of possessiveness, a notion that despite our separation, my moving on breached some unspoken contract. It was odd, navigating the reassurances that her place in Ethan's life was irreplaceable while asserting my own right to happiness. Work also threw me a curveball, a promotion, well-deserved if I may say so, but it meant more responsibility. Balancing fatherhood with a more demanding role was intimidating, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Life certainly wasn't getting simpler. It was a medley of Ethan's school projects, tight work deadlines, all tangled with the dance of new relationships and co-parenting. But there was this undeniable rhythm to our days, a sense of forward motion that felt like growth, like healing. Greetings, Reddit family. It's David here, bringing you the penultimate piece of my ongoing saga. As the story unfolds, the past begins to settle, creating room for surprising developments. Let's launch into the growing pains of fresh starts and new blends, plus a shocker from left field. With Ava in our lives, Ethan's joy was contagious. He had someone new to look up to, someone who could play the role of a friend, a mentor. It was palpable how their bond benefited him, brought back some of the light that the divorce had temporarily dimmed. Our trio started crafting traditions, Saturday pancake breakfasts, where Ethan would proudly wear his chef hat and manage to get more batter on the counter than in the pan. Ava was a natural, matching his enthusiasm with patience and laughter. It felt right, like we were slowly knitting together the patches of a new family quilt. But as things find a way of moving forward, they also throw you curveballs. Sarah approached me one day with a request that nearly floored me. She wanted to discuss the possibility of introducing her new boyfriend to Ethan. Yeah, I didn't see that coming either. It was a jarring déjà vu. I remembered how careful I had been with Ava, the tiptoeing around uncertainties. Now here was Sarah, extending the same scenario back to me, seeking support for another seismic shift in Ethan's world. Being honest, part of me was irked. The quagmire she dragged us through was still a tender bruise in my memory. But hold on. Wasn't this what moving on looked like? Perhaps this was her version of finding balance, striking out on a path that might bring her contentment, and by extension, make her a better co-parent. After a long chat with Ava, because, yes, her input mattered to me, we agreed. It would be hypocritical to deny Sarah the same opportunity to rebuild. We met the guy, Tom, vetted him as much as any protective father and pseudo-aunt could, and it turned out he was decent. Ethan's well-being remained our North Star, and if Tom was going to be a positive addition, who was I to stand in the way? That said, I kept a vigilant eye on the dynamics. Ethan's routine, his stability. That was the deal-breaker. Any sign of chaos, and the arrangement would be revisited. Work, in the meantime, demanded more of my brain space, leading a team, shaping strategies. It was a welcome diversion, a challenge that didn't involve emotional minefields. Yet, it still had to be balanced, with being there for Ethan, taking him to soccer practice and tucking him in at night. Life was morphing once again, a synthesis of old pains and new beginnings. Ethan's resilience, Ava's strength, even Sarah's attempt at normalcy, they were all threads in this evolving tapestry. Dear Reddit comrades, we've reached the culmination of this long, winding tale. David here for the last time. Who knew a thread could turn into such a cathartic exercise? Now let's crescendo this narrative symphony and talk harmony found amidst the chaos. The integration of Tom into Ethan's world was surprisingly smooth. Perhaps it's Ethan's ever-adaptable nature. Perhaps it's the cautious approach we all took. Tom turned out to be a genuinely decent guy, reinforcing the premise that people can surprise you in good ways. His addition to the equation didn't subtract from mine or Ava's relationship with Ethan. It enriched his sphere with another person to care for him. It wasn't all seamless, of course. There were awkward moments, hiccups in schedules, and occasional mixed signals. But the commitment to Ethan's happiness from all parties acted as our North Star, guiding us through. Ava and I found our stride, and with every day, my gratitude for her presence in our lives deepened. Ethan lavished in the attention and love of not just 2, but 4 adults who put him first, despite their complicated histories. It was the family I never imagined, but now couldn't see any other way. As for Sarah and me, our relationship stabilized into something functional, respectful even. It wasn't friendship, but it wasn't Cold War anymore either. There was an unspoken understanding, a truce for the sake of our son. We shared school achievements, coordinated holiday plans, and navigated flu seasons together, albeit through a lot of texts and occasional calls. Professionally, I continued to navigate upper management waters. It was oddly grounding, the world of spreadsheets and presentations, a contrast to the work of raising a child and nurturing a new partnership. Each success at work was a reminder that life was brimming with opportunities, that the past, with all its heartache, could pave the way for a brighter future. So here we are, Reddit. Life currently is like an orchestra, each of us an instrument, playing a part in this symphony we're composing for Ethan. There are off-key days, missed cues, but also moments of such profound harmony that they take your breath away. I've learned so much, grown in ways I never expected. Through the pain, the betrayal, the resilience, it all led us here, to a place where our son laughs freely, where he feels loved and secure, and where I've found love and purpose again. So thank you for reading, for supporting, for advising. This virtual community has been a crutch, a sounding board, and a wise sage all rolled into one. Your collective voices have echoed in my decisions, my resolve, and my hope. Hey everyone! Long-time lurker, first-time poster here on our relationships. I usually find solace in reading other people's stories, thinking my life was pretty straightforward. Boy, was I wrong. I'm here to tell you about the nightmare I've been living through for the past month. And honestly, I need to get this off my chest. I'm Jack, by the way. My wife Emily and I have been married for 8 years, with what I thought were the usual ups and downs of any marriage. We live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, complete with manicured lawns and friendly neighbors. At least they seemed friendly. Our neighbor Daniel moved in about a year ago. Young, charismatic, and always up for a chat. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy. Everything began to unravel on a day that was supposed to be like any other. I came home early from work because I was feeling under the weather. I had no grand plans, maybe surprise Emily with my not-so-famous chicken soup recipe, and spend the day in bed watching some mind-numbing TV shows. Yet, as I pulled into my driveway, I caught sight of Daniel's car parked in front of my house during office hours, which was strange because he usually worked like a clock. His car gone before I left and not back until the evening. Feeling that twinge in my gut that something wasn't right, I fumbled for my keys and made my way inside quietly. Our house was silent, too silent. "Em?" I called out. Nothing. I made my way upstairs, and that's when I heard them, muffled sounds that didn't need any explanation, coming from our bedroom. My heart dropped into my stomach and I felt sick. I pushed the door open and there they were, Emily and Daniel, in a way no husband should ever see his wife with another man. In that moment, time froze. I don't even remember what I yelled or how they scrambled, but I was out of there, back in my car, driving nowhere. When I finally pulled over, the reality of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been cheated on. My Emily, my high school sweetheart, the woman I had built my entire world around, had betrayed me. What's worse is that, in some cruel twist of fate, this all happened just days before our 8th anniversary. A date we both had engraved on the inside of our wedding bands. A date that was supposed to symbolize eternity. In the coming days, something even more devastating would come to light, something that would make Emily regret her choice in a way neither of us could have predicted. But let me not get ahead of myself. For now, I'll leave it here, trying to figure out where to go from this lowest of lows. Anyways, thanks for reading. Any words of advice or support would be much appreciated. It's me again, Jack. I posted here the other day about walking in on my wife, Emily, and our neighbor, Daniel, in the midst of an affair. Your responses were overwhelming, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support and the tough love advice. Some of you have been asking for an update, so here it is, and boy, is it a doozy. The days following the incident, I was in a daze. I booked myself into a nearby motel because I couldn't stand the thought of being in the same house where everything I believed in crumbled to dust. Emily was blowing up my phone with calls and texts, begging me to talk to her, to come home so we could figure things out. But I wasn't ready. Hell, I didn't know if I'd ever be ready to face her. Yet, amidst the rubble of my heartache, one text stood out, and it wasn't from Emily. It was a photo, sent from an unknown number, and it brought a whole new level of despair to my doorstep. The photo was of Daniel and Emily, looking cozy at some fancy event, dated 3 months prior. This had been going on for at least that long. The sender had scribbled a note over the picture, "Thought you should know the truth." That truth was like a wrecking ball to any hope I had of this being a one-off mistake. Some naive part of me wanted to believe that it was all a terrible error, a slip-up fueled by too much wine or a moment of insanity. But no, they had been weaving this web of deceit right under my nose, and I had been blissfully ignorant. I finally mustered the strength to confront Emily, to see what she would say for herself. It meant nothing, Jack. It just happened. Daniel, he was there when you weren't, with your work and everything, was her choking reply. It was pathetic listening to her grasp at straws, trying to pin her infidelity on my dedication to my job, a job that provided for us, that helped us build the life we wanted. But that wasn't even the peak of this whole tragedy. The thing Emily cherished most in the world, aside from our marriage, which apparently wasn't as high on her list as I believed, was her career as a journalist. She worked tirelessly, climbing from a local newspaper intern to a respected editor at one of the most popular lifestyle magazines in the city. Her work was her pride, her identity, and she was on the verge of a breakthrough piece that could have been her leap into national recognition. In her mix of confessions and apologies, she let slip that the event where the incriminating photo was taken was a magazine gala, where she had been collecting intel for her big story. The scope of her betrayal was just sinking in when another text hit my phone, a follow-up from the anonymous truth-bearer. "You're not the only one she's been lying to." I went numb. It seems impossible for things to get worse, but the universe has a warped sense of humor, doesn't it? Hey Reddit, it's Jack once again. After sharing the initial shock and the heart-wrenching aftermath of discovering my wife's affair, I didn't think it could get more complicated. But life has a way of surprising you, especially when you're already down. My previous post ended with another mysterious message hinting that Emily had been dishonest about more than just her relationship with Daniel. Curiosity mixed with dread as I tapped out a reply to the unknown number. "What do you mean?" The seconds stretched out like hours until my phone buzzed with a response that sent shivers down my spine. Ask her about her source at the magazine and then see if career is still her priority. Digesting this cryptic clue, I recalled all the nights Emily spent networking, claiming she was out squeezing information from various sources for her stories. With the image of her and Daniel cozy at the gala, I started questioning everything. Was her career advancement powered by merit or by manipulating her personal relationships? Was Daniel more than just a fling? Was he a contact, a source? Something told me there was more to uncover. Summoning every ounce of composure I had left, I confronted Emily. Her face said it all, the hesitation, the way her expression morphed from surprise to guilt. She started with a frantic explanation about journalistic integrity, but her words crumbled when I asked point-blank if Daniel was her source. She deflated like a balloon poked by a pin, admitting that Daniel's position in local government provided her with a trove of insider information. I was stunned. It was apparent now that her affair had been a means to an end. Daniel's bed was a mere stepping stone to her success. My stomach churned as she tried to justify her actions, saying it was her only option to break the big stories she needed. But the fallout was swift. The anonymous whistleblower had contacted her magazine, unveiling the unethical means of her reporting. Emily received an email that same night, an email that she read aloud through her tears. She was put on immediate administrative leave, pending an investigation into her conduct. Her work, her precious career, was slipping through her fingers. As Emily sat there, a sobbing wreck, part of me wanted to comfort her. After all, she was the woman I loved. But another part, a growing part, was hardened by betrayal and a newly discovered sense of justice. My heart was battered. Not only had she deceived me, but she had shown that she'd do anything, hurt anyone, to get what she wanted. If it's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that deceit doesn't pay well in the end. Emily was beginning to understand the price of her ambitions, the cost of weaving a network of lies so tight it was suffocating her. I'm back, Redditors, it's Jack. When I made that first post, never did I imagine I'd be here chronicling my life's undoing. But here we are, and honestly, updating you all has become a kind of therapy for me through this convoluted mess. In my last update, I described how Emily's passion, her career in journalism, had started to crumble when her deceptive practices came to light. Your messages of support have been a lifeline, even as I've sifted through the wreckage of trust and professional misconduct. But it doesn't end there, and the pieces kept falling. Emily's leave from the magazine escalated quickly. The investigation into her work was ruthless. She tried to argue her case, to fight back with talk of grey areas and the cutthroat nature of the industry. But each attempt was met with cold indifference. Her so-called network of sources and colleagues scattered like a murder of crows at the first clap of thunder. Turns out, loyalty in her world was as conditional as her ethics. The hammer came down not even a week after her leave started. I was there when she got the call, more out of a numb curiosity than any sense of marital duty. She put it on speaker, and a stern voice on the other end cut through the silence of our kitchen. "Effective immediately. You are terminated from your position with us," it declared, as sterile and impersonal as a voicemail message. No fanfare, no dramatic goodbye. Just a sterile severance of ties, severing the core of what Emily had fought so hard to build. The realization hit hard. Losing her job was humbling, but it was more than that. She'd lost her status, her influence, a fall from journalistic grace that felt Shakespearean in its tragedy. But the loss went deeper, because for Emily, her job was her identity. Without it, she seemed smaller, as if her very sense of self was tied to that byline. And when that vanished, part of her did too. In the days that followed, her determination to right her wrongs was palpable. She was penning freelancing pitches, reaching out to old contacts. But her name was now poison, and for a journalist, that's the kiss of death. After several rejections, her drive fizzled into despondency. The living room couch became her new permanent address, a place from where she stared blankly at daytime TV, a ghost haunted by the career she'd sacrificed on the altar of ambition and illicit love. Witnessing her downfall was a nauseating cocktail of schadenfreude and sorrow. While part of me felt vindicated, after all, she was reaping the consequences of her actions, another part, a part I thought I'd lost in the betrayal, ached for her. It was as though I was standing at the edge of her grave, mourning the vivacious, passionate woman she once was. As for me, my resolve is still forming. Some nights I'm convinced I should stay, if only to ensure she doesn't completely unravel. Other nights I dream of a new beginning, far away from the shadow of Emily and the home we made together. Hey, it's Jack. Thanks for sticking with me through these soul-bearing posts. I never anticipated the solace I'd find in sharing with strangers. It's bizarre, yet comforting that amidst my life's chaos, a community of anonymous souls can offer such profound support. The last time I updated you was to share the sobering downfall of Emily's career, a self-inflicted result of the choices she'd made. Alongside that, I've been wrestling with the broken pieces of our marriage, trying desperately to figure out where I stand amid the wreckage. In the past weeks, I've seen Emily transform from the high-flying editor with a steel core to a defeated woman barely holding herself together. Her remorse for the affair, once obscured by panic and self-justification, has started to emerge genuinely. The tears she's cried could fill the void where my trust used to live. But there's a chasm between forgiveness and foolishness that I'm too wary to cross without looking down. As for Daniel, the neighbor, our neighbor, my rage towards him simmers just below the surface. Although he hasn't reached out since the day I discovered them together, I catch glimpses of him. Furtive looks as he retrieves his mail or heads out to work. Part of me wants nothing more than to confront him, to tear down his smug facade with the weight of my anger. Yet I know that any satisfaction derived from that will be fleeting, and it won't repair the shattered remnants of my life. The air has become stale in our house, thick with unsaid words and creeping despair. It's a museum of happier times, a mausoleum of what was. I've decided that in order to breathe again, to rediscover who I am without the us, I need to leave. I owe it to myself to rediscover peace and perhaps one day, happiness. Yesterday, I sat Emily down and told her my decision. The conversation was one of the hardest I've ever had, the weight of finality heavy on every syllable. Her face, once so familiar, was etched with a pain I used to think was reserved for loss of the gravest kind. In a way, I suppose that's what this is, a loss of love, of trust, of shared dreams, the death of forever. Her begging was fierce, a storm of promises and pleas for me not to give up on us. But there's a fundamental crack in the foundation of our relationship, one that can't be mended by apologies or vows of change. Her voice cracked as she said, "I've lost everything, Jack. I can't lose you too." I responded quietly, "You should have thought of that before, Emily. I can't be the only thing you haven't lost." The silence that followed was an unbearable endnote, punctuating the finality of my departure. Could I have forgiven her? Perhaps, but I can't live in a house haunted by betrayal. So, with a heavy heart but a resolute spirit, I'm moving on. I'll leave things here for now. The road ahead is shrouded in fog, but at least it's a road that's mine alone to tread. As always, thanks for listening. Your comments give me more strength than you know. Jack out. Hello, Reddit family, it's Jack, checking in. From the sanctuary you've provided through this screen, I've been able to pour out the story that I never thought would be mine to tell. While the pain is still present, your kind words have been a balm, and I'm more grateful than I can express. When I last left off, I had made the decision to walk away from my marriage with Emily, to step into a future untethered by the wounds she inflicted. I won't sugarcoat it. It's been a roller coaster, a concoction of liberation and loneliness, uncertainty mixed with undeniable relief. I found a small apartment across town. It's nothing special, but it's a blank canvas, a place without memories that sneer from the walls. Every morning I wake up to silence, a silence that is mine, that doesn't echo with betrayal. It's in these quiet moments I've come to realize that what I'm grieving isn't just the loss of Emily or what I thought we had, but the loss of the version of myself that I thought I needed to be. I had entwined my happiness so tightly around her that I forgot it could stand on its own. Adjusting to single life is, well, it's weird. After all, being Jack and Emily was a title I wore with pride for nearly a decade. Now, wandering through the grocery aisles without her running commentary, or watching our favorite shows with the other half of the couch empty, it's like learning to walk again, familiar and foreign at the same time. And work has been my salvation. While Emily's professional world cratered, mine provided a stability I clung to. My colleagues, sensing the storm I was weathering, have been a silent army of support. They offered no prying questions, just a nod here or a coffee left on my desk there, the little things that say we're here, without the need for words. I've thrown myself into projects, finding solace in the routine and the feeling of accomplishment when something, anything, goes right. But let's talk about Emily. Despite everything, I can't deny that I've been keeping tabs on her, if only to assure myself she's coping. From what I gather, she's relocated back to her hometown, a small place a few hours away, where she's surrounded by family and the friends of her youth. I hear she started working for the local paper, a far cry from her big city editor days, but maybe that's exactly what she needed, to shrink the scale of her world, to simplify. Last I heard, she was volunteer coaching at the high school, finding some semblance of purpose in the aftershocks of her downfall. Life is quieter now for both of us. The passion that once roared in the confines of our home has receded into a calm that, while sometimes echoing with loneliness, is steadily being filled with the things I'd forgotten I loved. Photography, hiking, the quiet concentration of building model airplanes, hobbies I'd set aside for the sake of we instead of me. Hello again, Reddit community. It's your friend Jack, coming with more tales from the other side of heartbreak. The path I've walked since my last post, a mixture of introspection and new beginnings, has been both enlightening and challenging. Life in my little apartment has become routine. The pain of M's betrayal is now a dull ache, a scar instead of an open wound. I've embraced the solitude, using it as a canvas to paint a newer, fuller version of me, one that finds joy in small things and strength in the ability to stand alone. The funny thing about change is that it's both subtle and monumental. It sneaks up on you. One day, you're going through the motions, and the next, you're surprised to find a smile on your face for no particular reason. It's like the sun after a storm, not quite warm yet, but promising. Work has been more than a distraction. It's been a proving ground for my capabilities. Promotions were never my main focus. I was happy to let M chase the stars while I provided a steady, supportive foundation. But without the gravity of her dreams pulling me, I'm finding myself ascending, almost despite myself. Just last week, my boss called me in to discuss a potential promotion, one that would not only come with a better title and pay, but greater responsibility. The thought is both terrifying and thrilling, a sign of progress in a life I was afraid would stall in Emily's shadow. Emily, there's still a concern there, a phantom worry that nags on quiet nights. But she's carving out her own road to redemption far from me. Her social media shows snippets of a life reconstructed from the rubble of scandal. Just recently, she posted a story about a high school soccer game her team won. The jubilation in her voice, the pride in her words. It's something I haven't seen, or heard rather, in years. It's a different Emily from the one I knew, humbler perhaps, but maybe, just maybe, happier. There's also someone new in my life, though I hesitate to write it here. Her name is Anna, a colleague who translates her skill in graphic design into striking canvas paintings. I've bought one for my living room. It's abstract and lively, a stark contrast to the minimalism I'd become accustomed to. We've been to lunch a few times, and there's a comfortable ease between us that's refreshing. She knows nothing of Emily, of the gaping wounds that were once fresh. With Anna, I'm just Jack, the guy who likes to hike and has a newly discovered penchant for spicy food. As I move through this phase of recalibration, I'm learning that happiness isn't just about who you're with or what you've accomplished. It's about finding peace within, about recognizing the limitless breadth of a single life and the beauty in beginning again. Thanks for being part of my journey. Signing off for now, Jack. Hey there, Reddit family, it's Jack. I hope this message finds each of you chasing your own slice of happiness. Since my last update, there have been developments. Ripples of change that have nudged my life into a new stream, flowing towards a future I hadn't dared to envisage in the throes of my marriage's collapse. My new apartment has come to feel like home. There are guitar strings scattered on the coffee table, a hobby I've rediscovered, and photographs of recent hikes adorn the walls. It amazes me how much life can shift, how quickly a space can transform to reflect the present, not the past. The promotion at work materialized, with a new office and new expectations. Some mornings, as I settle behind my desk and glance at the city skyline, I marvel at how far I've come. From the husband of a rising star editor to my own person, complete and content. My colleagues, some who have walked with me through this tumult, share in the victory. Through them, I've learned that there's an immense power in connection, in community, even within the confines of an office space. Then there's Anna. What started as casual lunches has evolved into something more defined, more intimate. At first, we tiptoed around each other's lives, exchanging stories of travels and dreams over steaming cups of coffee. Yet, as our conversations spilled over from afternoons into evenings, I knew I was facing a crossroads. I want to be clear, this isn't about replacing Emily or forgetting what I've been through. It's about acceptance and moving forward. With Anna, the laughs come easier. The silences aren't loaded with unspoken sorrow, and when I look into her eyes, I see a path that's inviting, not ominous. This was crystallized last weekend when Anna held an art showing at a local gallery. Her work, a cacophony of colors that somehow find harmony on canvas, captured the attention and admiration of everyone present. But it was her vulnerability, the way she bared her soul through every brush stroke, that resonated with me. I saw the parallel in our endeavors, her paintings, my life, both of us starting with blank canvases, daring to add color and form, risking the exposure of our inner selves for a chance at something splendid. In the quiet corner of that bustling gallery, Anna reached for my hand, and without words, we acknowledged the shift in our relationship. It felt natural to intertwine my fingers with hers, to acknowledge the budding significance of us. So here I stand, at the threshold of a new chapter, one that doesn't deny the scars, but doesn't dwell on them either. It's a chapter that promises renewal and reawakening. Thank you, dear readers, for lighting the way with your comments and kindness. With gratitude, Jack. Hello once more, friends of Reddit. Jack here, with another chapter from the novel my life has unexpectedly become. The past months have been painted with broad strokes of self-reflection and tentative steps forward. Now, those steps have quickened, and I find myself jogging toward a horizon that seemed so distant it might as well have been a dream. Anna and I have become inseparable over these last weeks. It started incrementally, a dinner date here, a museum visit there, each moment laden with the thrill of new connections and the sweet discovery that comes with them. She's taught me that it's possible to weave together a bond, not from remnants of the past, but from the threads of present understanding and mutual respect. Our relationship is one of equals, of two individuals who appreciate their singular histories but choose to look forward together. It's refreshing, after the complex web of my marriage with Emily, to engage in something so straightforward, so uncoupled from agendas and secrets. Speaking of Emily, I recently received an unexpected letter from her. It was handwritten, the characters a testament to her journalistic precision, yet every word carried a weight that was palpably human. She didn't beg for a reunion or lament over lost love. Instead, she offered clarity. Emily wrote of her new life, her shrinkage back into the small-town world she once thought she had outgrown. She confessed to relinquishing the relentless pursuit of ambition, discovering instead a passion for the raw potential of the teenage athletes she now coached. Her words spoke of liberation, of the unanticipated peace found in a simpler existence. She also apologized, not the desperate, chaotic apologies that filled the days after the affair was uncovered, but calm, introspective atonement. She acknowledged the pain she caused, the devastation her actions wrought, and the lesson her fall from grace taught her. It was with a complex cocktail of emotions that I absorbed her words. Yes, there was a trace of bitterness, a hint of righteous indignation at the memories her handwriting stirred. But overwhelmingly, there was relief, a balm to the lingering sting of betrayal, as if her acknowledgement allowed a final valve to release, letting the last remnants of our shared past escape into the ether. I haven't replied to her letter, not yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But her reaching out, however unexpected, felt like a necessary step for both of us, a mutual acknowledgement of the pain we endured and the healing we've since sought. So Reddit, that's where my tale stands. Moving on isn't a singular event, but a series of small, everyday choices that gradually mold a new existence. It's about painting your life with the colors of the present, not the shades of yesterday. Appreciatively, Jack. Dear Reddit community, it's Jack, and this will be my last post in what has become a diary of despair turned to hope, betrayal transformed into the promise of new beginnings. Your companionship on this journey has been an unexpected anchor, and I'm deeply grateful for every comment, every shared experience that you've offered. Since my last update, with Emily's letter still fresh in my mind, I have found a sense of completion. It's not just about moving on. It's about coming full circle, understanding my journey not as a series of random events, but as necessary steps on the path to where I am now. Anna and I have further cemented our relationship. With each passing day, the connection between us deepens, founded on mutual admiration and a shared vision for the future. She's shown me that love isn't about ownership or dependency, but about companionship and shared joy. It's as if the universe decided to offer consolation, a reminder that after every sunset, no matter how dark, a sunrise awaits. I eventually penned a reply to Emily, a short note of acknowledgement and farewell. In it, I wished her well and expressed my hope that she finds fulfillment in her new life. It was a necessary release, I think, for both of us, a final act of letting go, allowing both our spirits to move forward, unburdened. Now, life has settled into a pleasing rhythm. My promotion has brought new challenges, but also new triumphs. The responsibility is invigorating, the recognition uplifting. The shattered confidence that once mirrored my broken marriage has been replaced by a robust sense of self-worth. As for Anna, her art has gained recognition beyond our local circles. She was recently featured in a regional magazine, her talent catapulting her into the spotlight she so deserves. We support each other's dreams, finding that our ambitions do not compete but complement. It's strange, looking back at where I started, a man shocked and hurt, uncertain of his next breath, let alone his next step. I've learned so much about life, about myself. I've discovered resilience I never knew I had, and the profound strength that comes from surrendering to the flow of life's current. So this is where I close this book, with every intention of starting a new one. My story isn't ending, it's just beginning anew. Thank you for being part of my story. Keep writing yours. And remember, no matter how dark it gets, there's always a chance for renewal and a new story to tell. With heartfelt gratitude, Jack.